Fleming, and
Second.
I
I'll do.
have a second. Who was that?
I'll do it.
Okay. Motion by McCracken. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? Good. Next is public comment, and that's anything other than what we have on our agenda tonight that anyone wants to speak about. Okay. Staff comments?
All right, good evening, Commissioners.
Good
A couple updates for you. So for May, for our regular Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, there will be a few public hearing items. We're trying to determine staffing levels, so there's either going to be 2 hearing items or 3. So keep you posted on that. Also, May is Preservation Month, so our Historic Preservation Commission has been working hard with the Museum of North Idaho and pulling together a program of events during the month of May. So it'll kick off on May 1st with a reception, so historic preservation reception and awards event. That'll be at the Jewett House starting at 6 p.m. Everyone is invited, community members, commission members, love to see you there. Also, there are a variety of different tours that the Museum of North Idaho is going to be doing during the month of May on Saturdays. And the Historic Preservation Commission is going to be doing a Mother's Day tour. There's more of an open house kind of style, so there'll be 2 of those. One will be at the Depot in downtown, and the other will be at the Hamilton House, which is the Music Conservatory. So that's from 2 to 4 p.m. And then we'll also do some outreach during the farmers market events in both the locations downtown as well as in Riverstone.
Okay, thank you.
That's all.
Commission comments? Okay, moving right along. We're going to move into our public hearings. Just want to point out, we had 2, but 1 is canceled, so if anyone was here or wanted to talk about the applicant was Dennis Cunningham, and that was a proposed PUD. That's been canceled, so we're only going to be talking about the item, which is the proposed 9-lot subdivision. There's a sign-up sheet. Hopefully, everybody signed up on it, and I'll try to pronounce your last names correctly, but a lot of the times I don't do that because I can't read it, so bear with me on that. So make sure you sign up, and who is going to come on up? Okay. There was a little, Mike's going to give us an overview of the
Yes.
project.
Good evening, Commissioners.
Good evening.
This is a public hearing for item S-1-24. The applicant is Todd Kaufman, and they're represented by Olson Engineering. The applicant is requesting approval of a 9-lot and 1-tract preliminary plat to be known as Kaufman Estates. Property is located immediately east and southeast of the intersection of Steiner Avenue and 17th Street. Legal notice was published in the Coeur d'Alene Press on March 23rd, 2024, and all other required notifications have been made. Property is located here, highlighted in red. You see this is 15th Street, this is Best Avenue, 17th Street runs adjacent to this property. You see this is Steiner Avenue, Gilbert. The property is highlighted here in red. Here's a bird's eye view looking north. And here is the applicant's proposed subdivision. You can see the road is located to the north. There's sidewalks on both sides. The lots are 7,000 square feet or greater, which allows for duplex housing and single-family housing units. There are 4 findings that need to be met in order for a subdivision to be approved. Finding B1 through B4, and we'll go through over each one of these. Starting off with B1, that all of the general preliminary plat requirements have or have not been met as attested by the city engineer. The city engineer has indicated that the preliminary plat submitted contains all of the general preliminary plat requirements required by the municipal code. Next finding is finding B2, that the provisions for sidewalks, streets, alleys, right-of-ways, easements, street lighting, fire protection, planting, drainage, pedestrian and bicycle facilities, and utilities are or are not adequate. The city engineer has indicated that the subject property is bordered by 17th Street to the west, approximately 9 feet of right-of-way along the property frontage, along 17th Street will need to be dedicated to the city to match the 25-foot right-of-way width that exists to the south. Frontage improvements, including concrete curb, sidewalk, and asphalt paving, must be completed at the property frontage. Sidewalk along the frontage of 17th Street will need to be located within the right-of-way or an easement. City staff from Streets and Engineering, Water, Wastewater, Fire Departments, and Police have reviewed the application requests in regards to these items. Staff has recommended 21 conditions as part of the subdivision request. The conditions are required to bring the plat into full compliance with code requirements and performance standards. All departments have indicated the ability to serve the project with the additional conditions. See page 7 and 8 of the staff report for full staff comments. Finding B3, that the proposed preliminary plat does or does not comply with all the subdivision design standards and all of the subdivision improvement standards. The city engineer has indicated that for the purposes of the preliminary plat, both subdivision design standards and improvement standards have been vetted for compliance. The last finding is finding B4. The lots proposed in the preliminary plat does or does not meet the requirements of the applicable zoning district. The existing zoning is R12, which allows for single-family and duplex housing types at a density of 12 units per acre. Setbacks of future buildings are tied to the R12 setback requirements. The proposed subdivision is in conformance with the R12 zoning district. Here's a zoning map indicating the zoning is R12 and the surrounding zoning is R12 as well, with some county ag suburban to the east. There are 21 recommended conditions that are at the end of your staff report. And action alternatives, you will need to consider this request and make appropriate findings to approve, deny, or deny without prejudice. And that concludes my presentation.
Go ahead, John.
Thank you, Mike. Got a question regarding the finding B2 and B3 that have to do with the subdivision design standards. I wonder if you could go back to that
Sure.
preliminary plat drawing. And maybe take a shot at this, or maybe Mr. Bosley could help us out here. But first question would be, with respect to that dead-end public street, what is the length of it?
I'm not for sure on the total length of that dead-end street. I do know that they are gonna, their standard, one of the conditions is to leave 40 feet for snow storage at the end of it.
And I don't see that in the drawing, so I'm looking at, this subdivision design code, municipal, municipal code 16-15060 talks about dead-end streets and whatnot. And it says, streets designed to have one end permanently closed in the form of a cul-de-sac can be no longer than 400 feet. I don't know what that is.
Chris would probably be the best to discuss that.
And then it further says that it needs to terminate with either a cul-de-sac that's 50 feet in radius, or a Y or a T, and I don't see that here. And I raise that issue because in the staff report it says, quote unquote, this is an issue because this will be a public street that'll be maintained by city crews, and the current design ends the street too close to the neighboring property, and it just abuts there.
That was correct. At that time, reviewing the plat, the city engineer and the head of the streets department has indicated that getting snow removal from there would be very difficult since it just abuts right next to a neighbor's property. So they recommended a condition to move that back 40 feet for snow removal. And the T turnaround is right here.
Yeah, I'm struggling with whether that's an appropriate condition. I mean, if it means a reorganization of, flipping that hammerhead thing, turnaround thing there and shifting the lots to the west flipping that or doing something, shouldn't that be done now, not as a condition, you know, but,
If you'd like Chris to speak, to answer that
well,
question.
maybe we could at least talk to the 400 feet and, whether that, what I'm looking at meets 16.15.060 with respect to how that is terminated.
And John, just, are we talking about on page 7 in our staff report? So, under the streets?
Yes.
Portion of it? Okay.
Yes.
Go ahead, Chris.
So the street, I believe, is a little over 600 feet long because I was measuring it to figure out where streetlights would be placed because we had a comment about street lighting. So I believe it is just over 600 feet. The applicant can correct me if I'm wrong on that, but we have always fallen to or relied on the fire department's review of these as far as turnarounds like this. We would definitely prefer a cul-de-sac, and we did have a conversation today in our development review team about code amendments that would require a cul-de-sac or eliminate the possibility of having dead-end streets. The last few dead-end streets that have come before you have been private streets because they've been in PUDs, and we would much prefer to keep them private so that we don't have to push snow down to the end and deal with that. This could take us quite a while to remove snow from a situation like this. But as far as the conversations we've had, we didn't see anything that said that this didn't meet the code.
Again, I read the code. It says, you know, that it can be no longer than 400 feet. Is it 600 is more than 400? Is that a code or not? Am I interpreting that correctly?
You are reading it correctly.
Okay. So it exceeds the 400 for one, and it just appears problematic to me, having been a kind of a snowplow kind of guy previous life. I just don't see how a piece of equipment gets down there and gets turned around, and 10 years from now they'll have mature trees that we do leaf pickup, and it's a public street. So how's the street sweeper turn around? And there's a lot of issues there, I guess. But
It is something we struggled with. We have a couple other public streets like this that, in the Riverstone area, that are very time-consuming for snow removal.
And so the waste management folks then go to the end, pick up, or they're recycled, and they back into that turnaround and come back out. Is that right then?
I
'Cause
believe
if
they
you're-
would have to.
Yeah, because you got to do the lift equipment dump, and then you come to the dead end, and now you're backing up down that street and doing that turn on a very large vehicle. It's tough. And snow removal.
Chris, when they were doing reviews and stuff, did you guys have conversations of saying, is there a better design for this? Everything we've just kind of talked about, or is this something that, okay,
No, I mean, in our engineering department, we did look at it for plat requirements and things like that. Obviously, the 400 feet issue didn't come up in any of those conversations. I don't know if the rules are different from a PUD, but this is basically the same design that we've seen the last 3 times, so.
all right.
But this
Okay.
is no longer PUD.
Correct,
Correct. That's the biggie.
yes.
Chris, so the code says one thing, not more than so many feet, but you're proposing something greater. So this is not.
I'm not.
Well, something greater is being proposed. So it exceeds the code, doesn't meet the code. Why would it come before us?
This is new information to me. I mean, we haven't had to deal with a dead-end street like this until now.
And we're
So
abutting.
retired people do have a key role in our organization. You identified it.
Well,
John, yeah.
it's not just the 400 feet I'm questioning. The code also says it is to terminate with either you know, a 50-foot radius cul-de-sac or a Y or a T. You know, perhaps if that hammerhead was moved down there and things reorganized, it might have a chance. But
And John, my issue is, when things come before us, if it doesn't correspond to the code, I have a hard time, no matter what it is, I sort of a hard time accepting that. You know, if it doesn't meet the code, why are we bothering ourselves with the time?
Let me ask a question to legal, Randy. Given what we just heard, in fairness perhaps to the applicant and to Chris, giving that, right now we're looking at something that doesn't meet code.
Well, we're going to have to hear from the applicant. The ordinance itself says, streets designed to have one end permanently closed or in the form of a cul-de-sac cannot be longer than 400 feet. So I think we need to hear from the applicant to see what they have planned.
Okay. All right. Any other questions to Chris?
I had a couple
Oh,
of, yeah.
oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Chris, a couple of quick things. Does this street have parking on both sides? Not on the lot, but in the right of way?
No, there's the street width, I believe, is 25 feet. That's probably to back of
How
curb,
about
24 feet-ish.
How about sidewalks?
There are sidewalks
On both sides?
on both sides, yes.
But also, I think I read somewhere there was no parking signs on the street as well.
That was one of my conditions, was to add no parking signs on this extension of Steiner as well as 17th Street, because that street is only 20 feet in width.
And would that be both sides or one side?
Both sides, yeah.
Okay.
And so,
Sorry,
Yeah,
Phil.
no, that's okay. Along with what John was saying in the section of the subdivision code he was citing, I think, and I may be wrong, it talks about if it's 400 feet long, it has to have parking on both sides. The cul-de-sac may be an issue, but I just think if the code specifically says parking needs to be provided, they're talking at 9 lots, that's 18 families, that's potentially 36 cars. That gets to be a bit problematic. Also, one final thing. How does this street align with Steiner to the west, or does it?
Not very well. It's offset. Even if it was pushed to the far, oh, it's you doing that. Even if it was pushed to the far north end of the property, it still would not align. There's a jog there.
Okay. Thank you very much, Chris.
I'm sorry, Chair.
No, go right ahead.
Chris, you may not be the right one for this, but one of the conditions that I struggle with, it says, number 15, it says, an approved snow plan is required for access during winter. And if that's a condition that the applicant has to put together a snow plan, that seems a little odd. You know, the street department does a snow plan for the city. Having a snow plan done up by an applicant for a public street that the city's going to maintain, it doesn't seem to make a whole lot of sense to me.
I agree. I think that must have been a carryover from the PUD staff reports because, we wouldn't require a snow plan for this because we'd
Once
be
once
removing
the
the snow
applicant builds
ourselves.
this thing, they're long gone,
Right.
right? Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Chair,
Oh, go
two-
right ahead.
One question of Mike, but before that, the question of Chris. So there's two things that just came up that are inconsistent with our plan, the snow and then, are there more in there? I mean, why would this come before us with these deficiencies? That's one question. Secondly, and more importantly probably, is to Mike. And that, this is the third time this has come before us. Now, the education of the public is a very key component of any governmental agency. And we have people here that are and they have their interest. Can you help us and explain what has changed between the first two that were denied and this one? Thank you.
The first one was 24 twin homes, and the second one was 22 twin homes, and this one is 18 duplex, or 9 duplexes with 18 units.
The only change has been the number?
That's right.
The only change has been the number.
Well, for the PUD, there's
PUDs.
open space requirements.
2 PUDs.
Yeah, the two PUDs, there was open space requirements that they had to show open space and how those amenities were used by the members of the subdivision.
And the other
This
two-
does not require open space.
All right, because the other two were PUDs, this is not a PUD.
That's correct.
Right, so we're kind of starting all over. Go ahead, Randy.
One of the differences is there are 9 lots in this subdivision as opposed to the 24, which would be required for the twin homes.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it. Before I have the applicant come up and anyone who signed up that wants to speak, I'm going to swear everyone in at once, so I don't have to keep repeating this over and over again. So after I make the statement, just say you do. Do you solemnly swear and/or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God? Yes. Okay. Thank you. And if you change your mind, you didn't sign up, and you want to speak before I close public testimony on this, I'll say that, and you'll have a chance to come up if you change your mind. So at this point, we're going to have the applicant come up and just state your name and the city you live in. Appreciate it.
Good evening, Commissioners. Jeremy Terzulli. I am a land use consultant with Olson Engineering and Kimley Haygood. Here tonight on behalf of the Kaufman family for Kaufman Estates. I will start with sort of a brief summary of how we got here. Actually, forgive me, I'm going to start hopefully to answer a couple of the questions that came up to staff. First and foremost, that code section states a permanent dead end, and I don't think at this point in time we can say whether or not that will be a permanent dead end. If you look at the county ag to the east, the chance of that annexing into the city at some point in the future and have an extension of this roadway, I can't give a statistical analysis on the likelihood of that happening. What I can tell you is in other jurisdictions, we are actually required to end a street allowing for future connectivity if there are undeveloped parcels adjacent to the parcel that we're developing. So, that being said, we designed it this way, looking for feedback from the city. We received the staff report on Friday with the conditions of approval, and nowhere in any feedback from staff did we see that this would need to be redesigned. We're willing to look at redesigning this area. We're willing to look at a condition of approval to redesign this area. But what we did is we took a shot as to what is the likelihood of Steiner continuing to the east at some point in the future. So therefore, we left it. We provided a legal fire truck turnaround, roughly at the 400-foot mark, and we looked for feedback from staff. So hopefully that helps clarify that, and I can answer any additional questions as they might come up. So, a brief summary of how we got here. Most of you are probably going to remember this. This was cut from the local multiple listing service, the MLS, that shows the property went up for sale in November of 2021. Prior to it going up for sale, the gentleman that lived in this house did die and left it to his kids. Back, I think, somewhere in August, I actually analyzed this property with a different individual who had a chance to look at this property prior to it going on the market. So it was months in the making before this property actually came available for sale through the MLS. It did sit on the MLS for the better part of 80 days before the Kaufman family made an offer on it, which was accepted. In that time frame, Todd and his sons came to me, and we sat down and did some code analysis on this property, what the potential redevelopment was on this property, We knew that the underlying by right use would have been duplexes or single-family homes. We felt that to best maximize the opportunity on this parcel, that we would try for a PUD, thus giving us the opportunity to sell those twin homes, fee simple, and create some entry-level housing for the community. So, in summary, Kaufman purchases the property in February 2022 after we did our analysis. We put forth the original design and brought a PUD to this commission in August of 2022. That was 24 twin home lots. That was denied. We then had a meeting with city staff to discuss the duplex option in December of 2022 after we had sort of reassessed. We brought forth something that similar to what you see before you today. City staff really encouraged us to go back to the adjacent property owners and see if we could come to some sort of compromise with them. So Tammy was nice enough to facilitate that meeting. We did have a meeting with those adjacent property owners in February of 2023. That meeting lasted over 3 hours here at City Hall. We did go back and forth with them. After that, we came with a new proposal for a PUD. We knocked off 25% in the density. We added to the open space. We agreed to allow that open space to be used by members of the general public, not just residents in the PUD. That came before you in August of 2023, and that request was also unanimously denied by this commission. We felt that we were much, much closer on that second, so we did appeal it to City Council, and although it was a divided council, the Planning Commission's decision was upheld by the council, and that happened in October of 2023. We then circled back with the owners, the engineering team, and we discussed our options. At that point in time, Todd was adamant that he felt that we should figure out what is a by right use on this property and just go through that, because any deviations from standard were going to be scrutinized heavily, and therefore minimizing his ability to redevelop this parcel. To honor the wishes of the adjacent property owners, we actually did do an analysis of some larger lots with single-family homes on there, ranging in size of 1/3 to 1/2 acre. Although it should be noted, those still do have to have frontage on a public right-of-way, so we would have had to build this public right-of-way. And after we did our analysis and built out a pro forma, we just could not create a situation where the project was profitable, and in most scenarios, we saw it losing money. So that's why we went back to the duplex option, which is the by right option in the R12 zoning. In following Mike's proposal, this is the zoning map, and as you can see, this parcel exists in a sea of green, which is the R12 zoning designation. And then if you look historically, this is a satellite image taken from the Kootenai County GIS system. What I did is I left the underlying parcels from the 2022 zoning, or rather parcel map, but I changed the image overlay so that you can see that some of these larger parcels in 2010, which is the imagery on the screen right now, were still some of those larger underdeveloped parcels. 3, which is here. And I understand that's a lot of words on the screen, but in summation, what that Idaho statute for subdivision ordinance states is that it grants every property owner in the state of Idaho the right to subdivide land as long as the subdivision complies with the standards set forth by the agency having jurisdiction. In this case, that's Coeur d'Alene. Allows the city to collect fees for any impact of that subdivision, and also provides remedies for property owners who are denied a request to subdivide. That's what this section in summary is all about. So, what are the standards that have been codified by the city of Coeur d'Alene. That all the required general preliminary plat requirements for a formal plat contained in city code have been met as determined by the city engineer. And page 6 of your staff report, which is all we've got to go on right now, we received it on Friday, that the city engineer confirms conditions have been met. Number 2, pages 7 and 8 of the staff report. All departments provided comment on this project. Water and sewer can be provided as before with the PUD. The street can be constructed. Police and fire can provide protection. Stormwater can and will be managed through the additional site plan and the design of that street. Pedestrian facilities can be constructed. So we feel we've met all of those standards. The proposed preliminary plat complies with all the design standards of code, can comply upon construction with all the improvement standards contained in the title, and any deviations or specific standards have been requested and granted. Again, as Mike stated, this has been vetted for compliance, and per the information we received, that it is in compliance per the city engineer. Number 4, that the lots proposed in the preliminary plat meet the requirements of the applicable zoning designation. The underlying zoning, once again, not to be redundant, is the R12 zoning. This is cut and pasted from city code that our site performance standards in the R12 zoning district are that 3,500 square feet per unit, except in single-family detached housing, which is what we're proposing. All of our lots are 7,000 square feet or greater, therefore allowing 3,500 per dwelling unit, thus rendering A2, in essence, irrelevant. And that all buildable lots have 50 feet of frontage on a public street, which we have satisfied that requirement as well. This is a cleaned-up version of our preliminary plat. Again, if this commission feels that there needs to be some redesign at the terminus, at the end of Steiner to the east, we would entertain that. But this is information that's new to us. The report that we got back from city staff were 21 conditions attached to the staff report that we've reviewed and can agree to and can comply with as we move forward in the design. So in summary, our general preliminary plat requirements have been met. The proposal has been reviewed by city departments. Design can accommodate the conditions that we've seen. The preliminary plat complies with subdivision design standards per city code. The proposed lots meet the minimum design standards per code. Duplex housing is an allowed principal use within the R12 zoning designation. The proposal is consistent with the compact neighborhood designation as outlined in the comprehensive plan, and we are requesting no deviations from the standards at this time. And with that, I can stand for any questions.
John?
Thank you, Jeremy. First, you indicated that, this may not be a permanent dead end, but, one that's stubbed out for the future. And I can't help but, I look at your, the platting that's out there now. And to the east, I just see no rationale, feasibility for Steiner to be further extended to the east. There's lots that are split, in the road, so you'd need lots to the north, lots to the south, and those lots run north-south, not like this one to the east-west. I don't see that as any kind of feasibility there. And it would also then create these lots that front Gilbert, they would become double-fronted lots, which opens the door to a whole host of other problematic issues of requiring HOAs for that and so forth. I just, maybe you could address, really the feasibility of this extending further to the east. I just don't see it the way, the platting is and how the multitude of ownerships there that would have to come together to
Well, let me
Make that
first.
happen?
Go ahead. I don't want to cut you off
No.
if there's additional comments that you wanted to make.
I was going to also ask to go back again. Question bullet number 3 there, that it complies with subdivision design standards. Again, 400 versus 600. And
But that word permanent does become the key word here.
I don't see that as feasible, is what I'm saying. And secondly, it does say, in the code, that at the closed in, whether it's 400 or 600 feet, at the closed in, it has to be either cul-de-sac, wide, or T'd in some suitable fashion for a turnaround, because, and that seems to be not just a question of whether of compliance, but of practical concern over ability to function and maintain. So I'd like you to address that if you could, please.
Well, I think I have to respectfully disagree with your assessment that the likelihood of continuity or a future connection to the east is, once again, I started this by saying I don't think any one of us can sit up here and quantify what the odds of that happening are. What I do know is that when I bring forth a proposal in other jurisdictions, Post Falls, Rathdrum, Hayden, Kootenai County, it is a requirement that we provide the ability to future connectivity to adjacent parcels. We're not allowed to dead end that and put a parcel at the end of there, because if that were the case, we would end the road at roughly 500 feet in, move that hammerhead further west, and have that lot go all the way up to the northern property boundary, and perhaps create a shared driveway there if we could get that approved. That extra roadway right there really does nothing to the benefit of our subdivision. It is deliberately put there in anticipation for connectivity to the east if and when it does occur. That's all I can say on that. If this commission believes that other standards are being met and the terminus of Steiner is of issue, they could certainly direct city staff to work with the developer to come up with an alternative. But we do believe that within the R12 zoning designation and what is codified in city code, that we have met the standards. I can't stress this enough. We did not get the conditions of approval until the staff report was provided to us, which would have been late last week. That does not give us enough time, even if at that point in time it had been told this terminus over here is an issue. We certainly could have opened discussion about how we can address that, but business days, and even what came out, it was never indicated to us. It's not until this evening, 20 minutes ago, that I was aware that this commission might find that problematic. It
Would
can
be
be
of
addressed, though.
assistance? Would it be of assistance to set this over so you could do your due diligence with this? I mean, you're saying here that,
I've done my due diligence. We've got the feedback from the city engineer.
and the city engineer said about the length of the street, that what we heard, it does not meet the code.
It doesn't meet the code if we call this a permanent dead end. That is the word.
Now, But whatever we do is permanent here. We make a decision, and it's permanent until changed. So I don't see how we can say this is not permanent, because we know it's going to be changed. It's permanent when we act on it. If it's going to be changed, you go through another routine to change it. So to me, it's permanent. But anyway, my basic issue is, and maybe this will come out, I'm hard pressed to accept something that doesn't meet our city code. Now, maybe there's good reason for that and so forth, but I haven't heard any. If it's under 400 feet, fine. If it's over 400 feet, not so fine. And John is to be commended to find this. End of discussion, Mr. Chair.
I just make a comment on that and give the applicant an opportunity, given what you've heard, and I have no idea how this is going to go. And I hear what you're saying, and I hear what staff has said and what Chris has said, and I don't know if you, are willing to, as Peter said, Commissioner Uthrop said, maybe take a step back and say, hey, yeah, we have an issue of a 600-foot street, and that's not meeting our code. Even though you're saying you've met the code and required your stuff, I'm just saying, if you're hearing some of the comments of the commissioners that raised this, and I don't know what anyone else is thinking. So there's an option for you if you want to pass this. You know, what would we do on this if we said, hey, we've got to do some, or the applicant might have to do some designing to not have an issue of not meeting code and snow removal and the things we've heard. Staff give us any guidance on that?
Randy, would you think it would be tabling the item? If that would be, then it would be changing. We'd have to renotice it because it would be a different design.
And one other thing, you know, and I have to agree with Commissioner Uthrop again, what we make a decision on is what we have in front of us. You know, not so much down the road.
What I can say is that our application was put in January of this year, and to make it all the way to an April hearing and have this be the first time I've heard that our road is not in compliance with city code based on an interpretation of that this will become permanent dead end, I find that incredibly
Excuse me, I'd like to drill down on that again. One is the length, and you have to just look at like I said, the platting to the east just shows to me that the feasibility of it having any notion of extension to me is near nil. That said, but the other issue that's also, I think, a big deal is it says clearly in the code, regardless of length, whether it's 100 feet, 200 feet, 250 feet, it says that at the closed in, it has to be cul-de-sac, wide, or suitable T. And we don't have that here. Correct? Would you agree?
That is a fire truck approved T hammerhead.
It is not at the end.
Definitionally.
Would you agree with me that it's not at the end?
I would agree with you.
Thank you.
And again, I hear what you said, that, you know, it's something that just came up, okay? And so let's say, kind of putting it out there, what your options could be, or what you would want to do, or you just say, hey, let's just go with this and see where it goes. That's up to you guys.
Well,
So
can we
again,
take
I'm
a
gonna go
5-minute
back-
recess
Let me go
then?
back to legal or staff and see what options are.
The code says the commission may approve, conditionally approve, deny, or deny the request without prejudice, or may defer the action until the next scheduled meeting in order to review additional information that it deems necessary in order to render a final decision.
Okay, and that would be, whatever the decision might be, something we would have to make in our findings at the point of, depending on where this is going, based on what the applicant might give us some input here in a minute or two. That would be in our findings, and whatever those three options would be stated that way, so that,
Well, if you defer, then you don't have to make findings tonight.
okay,
But if you do approve, conditionally approve, deny, or deny without prejudice,
Okay.
yes, you have to make findings.
and does the applicant have the ability at any point in time before all public testimony is heard, or before public testimony, to say, hey, let's table this and continue this at some other point in time to kind of clear the air with some of the concerns that are brought up here? Or do we have?
Theoretically, yes. There's nothing in the ordinance that says an applicant cannot request a postponement or request a continuance. But it does say that it gives the commission the options of what it can do, and I've explained those.
Okay, all right. Thank you. Go ahead, Phil.
Yeah, let me just say one thing. I don't know whether that length is appropriate or not, but obviously you believe it is, and you believe it conforms to the intent of the code. Not the city staff position to write a recommendation to us that says, hey, this is why we're approving it. All they're saying is, this is what's going on, and we have all that in front of us to review. And to me, if the gentleman wants to proceed or defer, that's up to him. But I don't think it's ever the responsibility of the city to put up a roadblock and say, no, you can't take that to the planning commission, city commission, because we object. It's not a clear, in my opinion, not a clear delineation that Hillary could say, no, I can't do that.
No, that is correct. The only thing that the commission, or the planning director can say is whether the application is complete or not.
Right. And it's up to the applicant to move forward with all and
Correct. And I
any
think there was a
information.
request
And
for a
unfortunately, this is,
I
you
think there
know,
was a request for a recess.
I mean, if there are additional questions, I'm not sure a lot has happened up here. Are they wanting to table it? Do we have to run the public hearing all the way through? I would like a chance to meet with my client, as I'm not the shot
The
caller.
applicant
sure.
is
Why don't we
requesting a
have
short
a
recess.
short recess
Thank you.
to discuss some items. We'll be back in about 5 minutes. Okay, reopen the planning and zoning meeting regarding the issue that's in front of us. Okay, what,
All right, once again.
Audio still isn't working for you.
you still
Mine is
didn't hear
good.
us?
Yours wasn't.
W-
We're good.
You got it.
We got it? We're all good?
Lean
Okay.
in. Lean in.
Okay, go ahead, sorry.
All right, once again, Jeremy Terzulli on behalf of the applicant Todd Kaufman. Given everything that transpired over the last several minutes, I had a chance to speak with the owner of the project. Based on the staff report that we received on Friday with the section regarding streets, we felt that our street section and our street as proposed was in compliance with city code because all we had was the feedback in the staff report, page 7. It would be apparent that this commission disagrees with that finding, so we would like the opportunity to meet with city staff, redraw that street, and come back before you at the next scheduled hearing.
Okay, and with that, one of the commissioners would have to make a motion to continue this at the next,
I so moved, we continue to our next meeting.
okay?
Seconded.
I have the motion by Commissioner Luthrop, second by Commissioner Kopis. Roll call on that, please.
Fleming,
Yes.
Ingalls,
Yes.
Coppice,
Yes.
McCracken,
Yes.
Luttrip,
Yes,
Ward.
Yes.
Thank
How
you,
about-
everyone.
Mr. Chair,
Me? Did you? I say yes.
Messina.
Yes. I would just want to say, okay, this matter will be continued. And Hillary, can you kind of tell us how any other public notice would be sent out, or what's the procedure
So
from
we
here?
won't remail for it, so I guess everyone that's here tonight, tell your neighbors, it'll be at the next regular meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission, same time, so it'll be, I don't know, the date is
Which
the
would
second.
be May, not the end of this month, May, hold on,
second Tuesday. in
May 14th.
May 14th.
Yes, so May 14th, in this room, 5:30 PM.
Okay.
We will probably put up a new sign on the property. I think that'll help, but we won't mail again. And so there would be no ex parte communication, so community members, applicant, do not communicate with the commission. Commission, don't talk to each other about this. If you have specific questions for staff, you may reach out, and the staff will meet with the applicant team, and
All right. And the public could still.
the public
send-
can reach out to staff, for sure, if
Yeah,
they have
yeah,
questions.
they can
Correct.
contact
Just
staff
not-
or send in
not to
other
you.
comments or anything
Just the
like that.
commission.
Okay,
Thank you.
Um,
Anything else, Randy?
so that,
Oh, I guess I have just one. If we have 3 other hearings that night, would we separate into 2 meetings for May probably?
We might need to, this one will be on the date we just indicated. So there was one that hadn't yet been determined, so that might be at a second meeting in May if we can get quorum. So we'll have
Okay,
to look at that.
so you'll email us
If
that.
not, that'll have to be pushed to June.
okay. So, again, I'm closing public testimony and this particular hearing at this point and bring it to any, you have another comment?
Well, we do have quite a few letters we've received and everything. We'll keep those letters and we'll reuse them.
Correct.
People could come in and make the testimony, which is good that they're here. And can we schedule it as one of the first ones? I mean, the people have sat here for an hour already and not get.
Yes,
Okay,
we
very
can do
good.
that.
Thank you.
Okay. I have a motion to adjourn.
So move.
I have a motion by Commissioner Lutherp to adjourn, second by Commissioner Ward. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for coming.
Thank you.